Hey guys, it's Feige and you're watching Disney Channel. So for those of you who don't know, I've recently been appointed CEO of LEGO, and one of the first things that I wanted to do is take a look back at the 2022 wave for LEGO Marvel and really, I guess, just listen and reflect and redo the theme basically. I want to fix it and make it better. I want to take the sets that you guys didn't like and that we all hated, and we're gonna just kick them away because I inherently am a massive LEGO Marvel fan, and this year has just been really disappointing, so much so that I stopped buying it. So why they gave me this new position, which you shouldn't fact check by the way, I don't know. In all seriousness though, I took a look back at LEGO Marvel 2022 because overall the theme was just a major disappointment to me. I went from buying almost every single LEGO Marvel set to barely buying any. So I've gone through and I've had a look at the sets that I want to keep, ones that I want to get rid of, and what as well that I would change those sets to things that I think the majority would probably like, that are a better price point as well, and just overall would probably make people a lot more loving and kind to the theme overall because it has not had a very nice reception. That being said, I think the designers for the LEGO Marvel team have done some amazing work this year. There are some sets that were really well done. There were also some builds that at least just looked great, but overall maybe the price point wasn't quite right. Maybe it's just of something that not a lot of people were asking for, or was done in a way as well that people really didn't want to see it done like. So please keep that in mind as well as I go through this video. So I've got my notes here, and the first set that I want to keep is the Sanctum Sanctorum. This, by far, is my favorite LEGO Marvel set of the year. I really don't have many complaints when it comes to this set, besides the minifigure department, but even that, I can forgive. The build is beautiful. It is something that people were asking and hoping for many years, myself included. Also, the build experience was a lot of fun. It fits in with the modular line. There's really not much else you could have asked for with this set. This absolutely gets to stay. Second on my list is LEGO Groot. Honestly, I wasn't a big fan of him at first, and then I bought him and I built him and I fell in love with him. He's cute. The model looks very creepy in the product images, but he can stay. He's great, good value overall, big win. Also, shout out to Justin Ramsden who designed both of those first two sets. I mean, he's really carrying the LEGO Marvel theme this year. Up next, I've got the Gargantos Showdown. Overall, it wasn't a particularly overly exciting set, but it was really different to what we'd gotten with LEGO Marvel. Overall, the minifigure selection was really good. The build as well was fantastic, and it wasn't too expensive, so we're keeping that. The Bridge Battle Polybag can also stay, as well as the Endgame Battle minifigure pack. Both of those I really liked. We've also got the Wolverine mech because Wolverine. I'm not a huge fan of these mechs, but you know, it's cheap and affordable and Wolverine's in it. The Black Panther mech can also stay because overall I liked the design of him, and Black Panther, pretty popular character. I'll also allow the Goat Boat to stay, as well as Thor's hammer, even though I wasn't a big fan of Thor's hammer. Kingdom Mars Throne Room as well. Overall, looks like a really solid small set. Haven't got it, don't plan on getting it, but I like it. The Nano Gauntlet, I mean, this was a pretty natural progression, so I'm not surprised that it came out. That one can stay as well. Guardians Advent Calendar wasn't a very great advent calendar, but a big step up from last year. And then lastly, we've got Shuri's Sunbird, as well as Shuri's Lab, even though I think it's a pretty poor excuse for a 4+ set. Both of those can stay too. Now, as for things we're cutting, firstly is the Spidey and His Amazing Friends line. I didn't like this at all. I mean, it's a 4+ wave, so that makes sense. I'm not really the demographic for a 4+ set. That being said, I mean, naturally with 4+ sets, they're pretty expensive. They got some nice cool prints, but I mean, it wasn't really very exciting, I think, as a line. So instead of having this line, I would go back to making Spider-Man sets, or even better, making just comic book sets in general. I feel like instead of having the Spidey and His Amazing Friends wave, the money and budget could have been better spent going towards going back to what we did in the mid 2010s and just having generic comic book style sets. LEGO has made it very clear that they're not going to do anything based off the Disney Plus shows unless it's a minifigure series. So instead, what I would do is just do a generic She-Hulk set or a generic Miss Marvel set. Now, Miss Marvel was included in Spidey and His Amazing Friends. However, it tied more into the show and didn't really look like comic book Kamala Khan, let alone TV show Kamala Khan. So I feel like then would be a fantastic time to bring them back. You could also just do a generic Spider-Man comic book set like we used to, which also then would tie in really nicely to the brand new No Way Home movie that came out almost a year ago at this point. It's not even brand new anymore, oh dear. Because for people like me, I don't even know why I picked up She-Hulk. She's not going to really appear very well with the green screen effect in play, but I went out and bought the old She-Hulk minifigure, whereas if they just released her in a comic book set again, wouldn't need to. And then it would tie into Disney Plus, and then the Disney Plus shows would come out and you would get more sales for those sets. You see why this is a good business decision? It also then goes back to expanding the Marvel theme beyond all of the movies, which I think would be a really good thing to do at this point in time. Especially considering a lot of people are pulling away from the MCU right now, so going back to the comic book stuff, going back to the X-Men like we did with the Wolverine mech is a big, big, big win. Oh, and of course like a comic book set with Hawkeye and Kate Bishop. Honestly, I think the reason that this didn't happen though was because of like the 2020 wave of Avengers sets, where it was based more on like the video game and like there was nothing tied into the MCU, and then they did like kind of poorly. Don't like listen to the sales results of that. Next that I want to get rid of is this Iron Man mech. Why? Because we just had one like 2 years ago. Why do we need another one? So instead, let's take away Iron Man. Let's kick him out and actually let's swap him with a character that we haven't gotten in mech form and also is really popular, especially with your female fans, which Lego, you got a lot of them. And let's make a Scarlet Witch mech. Firstly, that ties into Multiverse of Madness. Secondly, you hit all of the major Wonder stands, which I am. And thirdly, I mean, you just get a female mech. We haven't had one. It would be quite nice. I mean, She-Hulk is also a great option, or Ms. Marvel, again, to time with the Disney Plus shows, or even Black Widow, but ideally I'd want Scarlet Witch. The other option would be to do a Hulk mech, just a regular Hulk mech. You don't have to make it She-Hulk. I mean, I just think he'd be really cool. And then you could have like a brand new Hulk minifigure, which you did do in the Spider-Man and the Amazing Friends set, so we can do that again. In an ideal world, for my personal taste, I wouldn't have any mechs at all. So really, I'm trying to be a bit lenient here and think about what business decisions would make the most sense for Lego to do. Speaking of Iron Man, despite the fact that he's no longer included in the MCU, for some reason, Lego has a love affair with him, and we also got this buildable Iron Man. Turns out it was probably to do with the fact that they'd planned to do a giant Hulkbuster, but we'll get to that set. This looked a bit weird. It made sense for Iron Man though, considering it's like a, you know, like metal suit, but overall this set just did not hit. I don't care how many people will try and tell me otherwise. Instead, I feel like an Infinity Saga Winter Soldier set would have been really good. You could create a battle scene, because we've really got nothing from that movie besides a Winter Soldier poly bag, and that is kind of boring. This is like one of the best Marvel movies of all time, so, you know, doing something on that, especially with our new Infinity Saga wave, would be very, very welcome. Just do like a simple car chase, include the Winter Soldier, include Black Widow, maybe Nick Fury, Captain America. I mean, I don't really know what selection of minifigures you would do. Those are just some random options. Something Winter Soldier themed would have gone a lot better, I think. Now with Thor Love and Thunder, there really wasn't too much I guess you could do without it being spoiler territory. I mean, a battle in like the sort of like black and white world. I can't remember what that was technically called, but that would have been really cool. But instead we're going to take the Attack on New Asgard set. Now overall, this set was a fantastic minifigure sort of selection. It allowed you to get the main characters really cheaply, and that, at the end of the day, is why this set existed. However, the build for this sucked. It looked terrible. I don't know what Lego was thinking. So instead of this little like monster, I feel like having like a building facade would have gone down a lot better, or maybe just, you know, change up the character design a little bit of this little monster. Maybe you could have like a busted car or something, like missing some wheels, just to replicate, I guess, that scene a little bit better, because it still wouldn't spoil too much. It's all stuff that's in the trailer, but still represents that battle, which really I think is one of the only things you could do without it being too spoilery for Marvel to like it. I'm going to speed run through these next ones and then come back to what I would replace them with, but the first thing we're going to cut is the Hulkbuster. Why? Do I have to really explain? Admittedly, at this point in time, I haven't seen Wakanda Forever, but the set I want to cut is the War and Water. Why? Because it looks like that open wallet meme. The character selection's fantastic, but I'm really hoping that when I go and watch the movie that there's something else that could have been from it, whether it be earlier in the film or later in the film. I don't know, just I think Marvel really screwed themselves over with this one. I don't even put it up to Lego for this set being bad, because I think it looks well designed overall. It's not super expensive, but just like the ship design to begin with was really sad. Going along with Black Panther and the Hulkbuster, we're cutting the Black Panther bust. This thing is just as bad as the Hulkbuster, but I'm not as harsh on it because it is cheaper, even though it's still too expensive. This one probably doesn't deserve to get cut, but the Iron Man Armory, man, that thing is so overpriced, and also it's just a boring set for like it to be an Iron Man 2 set. Like, really? I get the first Armory was popular, but really, are we really like turning things around that quickly? And lastly, I want to cut every single buildable Spider-Man figure. Admittedly, Venom actually looks pretty good. Why? Because it's Venom. It makes sense. His proportions work. But Miles Morales and Spider-Man are horrible, and then you can't really just have Venom on its own, so we're cutting all of them. But now that all of those sets are cut, let's talk about what I would replace them with. To start off with the D2C set. Now, the biggest thing that I would want to do is I would firstly make them smaller and make them cheaper. That has been the biggest criticism that personally I have had as a fan, and that I have seen people come up with. These sets are way too oversized. They're much bigger than anyone was really hoping or asking for, and then the price just completely shuts off so many people. Now, a lot of people, including myself, have theorized that this is to be for like the Marvel fan. It's just a one-off set. However, and I've brought up this comparison before, a Hot Toys Hulkbuster is way cheaper than the Lego Hulkbuster, so I don't think collectors are really going for that. I think they would rather have something that is more movie accurate than buying a giant Lego set at that price point. Now, high price points though aren't necessarily a totally bad thing. I mean, I look at the Daily Bugle, and that is one of the best Lego Marvel sets to ever come out. And it is or was the same price, or almost the same price, as the Black Panther bust. So people will spend that amount of money. It just has to be the right set. Now, one big complaint when it came to the Black Panther bust and the Hulkbuster is that people were, expecting an Avengers Tower. It's 10 years of Lego Marvel, and what did we get? Nothing. But Avengers Tower, honestly, as much as I would love it, and I think it would be a great giant building, again, we just had the Bugle, and I don't think Lego would put out 2 skyscrapers back to back like that. We also need to consider the fact that the Sanctum Sanctorum did come out, so I think that knocks off like a building like that for the most part. I mean, we have the Bugle, this year we have the Sanctum, maybe next year an Avengers Tower. I hope that it happens, but for 2022 Marvel, in terms of how I would do the theme and how I would fix the theme, that's not a set that I think would work in this wave. So in order to mix it up, I would go a similar route to the Black Panther bust, where you're trying to do something that's just completely different, but instead of doing a giant bust, I would make a more minifigure scale style Quinjet. I mean, I look at the Beneta from last year, and while that definitely wasn't quite minifigure scale, it was still a lot larger, and overall, again, the reception to that set was amazing. I personally loved it. I heard a lot of compliments about it from other people as well, so I think a sort of like Star Wars UCS style of set as a Quinjet would be perfect. And I feel like doing the Quinjet specifically from the first Avengers movie, the 2012 The Avengers, would be the perfect route for this. 1, that ship appears quite a lot in that movie. 2, it's almost like a remake of the original one, which again came out in that first Marvel wave 10 years ago. And that way as well, you could make this an anniversary set, which a lot of people were really hoping for, because it just felt like everyone forgot. And even I'm pretty sure there's a quote somewhere where the designers say, yeah, they literally forgot that it was the anniversary. Now, I personally wouldn't want this ship to be too big, because I feel like it would be really hard to display. So instead of the ship making up a lot of what I guess the set's budget would be, a lot of it would be put towards the minifigures, where you would have these 6 original Avengers in really detailed, beautiful minifigure form. You would have a fully decked out Iron Man, complete with dual molded legs and side leg printing and arm printing, and basically all you needed. And it would have the original Iron Man helmet mold rather than that newer one that they introduced. You'd of course also get Thor, which again would be a more detailed and better looking version of the one that was included with Thor's hammer. You'd have an upgraded Black Widow, who would honestly probably have that Avatar hairpiece. You could have a beautiful new Hawkeye, and of course a really nice Hulk big fig, which I don't think would actually need too much detailing for the Hulk, but everyone else you could probably go all out, especially with Cap as well. You can do similar to what you did with Peggy Carter, and again, do the dual molded legs, side leg printing, arm printing, like really just go all out. I don't think golden figures would be a fantastic idea per se, especially for a set like this. However, I would have this set include a beautiful 10-year anniversary Lego Marvel or even Lego Avengers display stand, plus like the little like blue and black plaque stickers that you usually get with sets like this. And this set would take the place of the Black Panther bust. I can see it being a little bit cheaper, maybe more in line with like the Luke's Landspeeder type of pricing rather than Black Panther Republic Gunship type of pricing. Maybe it would still need to be a little bit bigger just to separate itself from the Beneta a bit, but somewhere in that sort of price range rather than the higher end of things. As for the second D2C set, it does not need to be $500 US. That is far too much money. Personally, I think a great option for another D2C set for Marvel would be like a Mos Eisley Cantina Master Builder style Avengers Campus. You could then do what you've done with like the Sanctum, and include minifigures from different films rather than just focusing on one. Though I think one of the best movies to really focus on in order to get a big variety would be characters from Civil War. I think that offers a lot of different people to pick from. Also, Avengers Campus was a pretty prominent part, at least in the beginning of Civil War. You could even do characters from Infinity War, because of course everyone comes back to base, or maybe even Endgame I think would be a really cool idea. But you could have it could be one of those things where people could build together, and really, honestly, it would just remind me of Mos Eisley Cantina. It doesn't have to be massive, it doesn't have to be overly detailed, but I feel like it would be really, really cool to get something like that, and at least close to minifigure scale. You could also include one of Tony's sports cars again, like they did with the Hall of Armor, and just stick it in there. I think it would be a really, really nice idea, and would pair well as well with a lot of other LEGO Marvel sets that are already on the market that are more playset style things. Now, if LEGO does still want to go down that Black Panther route rather than doing 2 Avengers style sets, one thing that I think would have been a lot better than the Black Panther bust would be to do that giant sort of like panther model that sits outside Wakanda. I mean, it was included in Fortnite when they brought Black Panther into Fortnite there. It was also the setting for one of the most emotional scenes in the original Black Panther movie, and that way as well you could again include a really nice, beautifully detailed T'Challa figure to go along with it, which A, is a really nice tribute to Chadwick Boseman, which originally was a part of the whole Black Panther bust idea, and 2, I just think it would be a lot more desirable of a higher price point than the Black Panther bust, which is something that could have been done on a smaller scale. Even if it didn't work in like regular helmet proportions, $100 set would have, I feel like, been a lot better. But if we want to go with a different superhero per se that is still really relevant in 2022, let's look no further than Thor. Now, one thing that I would really, really love to see is an Asgard set. Even people built it on LEGO Masters Australia last year, like a full Asgard. This is what I want. Again, like a Master Builder style of set, just a really nice facade, I guess, of the Asgard building and like a little bit of the Rainbow Bridge. You could have Heimdall, you could have Odin, you could have Freya, you can have like Jane in like her Asgardian gear, you can have a Dark World Thor, Dark World Loki, maybe even include Malekith, a couple of like regular Asgardians, whether they be like guards or just citizens. Overall, this would be a beautiful, really nice to display piece, and would definitely, again, fit that budget a lot better. It's something we haven't gotten. It's sort of like an Infinity Saga set, but also ties really nicely into Thor Love and Thunder, and Thor as well is such a beloved character that I feel like overall, despite Black Panther being one of the more successful movies of all time, I think Thor overall has just a lot more of an appeal and a bigger audience overall. So getting something like Asgard would firstly be very, very pretty and really beautiful and just really nice to look at from a LEGO design point of view, but also be a really solid set overall. And lastly, let's go back to the Iron Man Armory. Now, in terms of Iron Man Armory, look, I'm really excited that we got a Iron Man 2 set. It was great to get Whiplash. It was great to get another War Machine since we hadn't had him in a while, but everyone else just felt really weak. Those new Iron Man helmet molds really don't look that great, and I don't necessarily think they were needed. And getting another Iron Man Armory like 2-3 years after we got our last one just doesn't feel like a great use of a set to me. I think this spot should have been done in a different way. Continue to do an Iron Man 2 set, but maybe do like the whole Formula 1 battle, maybe even do the battle at the very end with like that sort of like Japanese like garden and pond type of thing. You could have Justin Hammer, you could have Whiplash, you could have a couple of like the Iron Man robot things, you could still have War Machine, you can have Iron Man still, and overall just be a lot nicer, even like a Malibu house party. Not that I think that's necessarily, I guess, appropriate for kids when it comes to a set, but still, nice scene to do it off. And then when it comes to the Spider-Man buildable figures, I feel like there was a much better way of doing this. I mean, we have the Spider-Man Green Goblin and Spider-Man mech coming out. I really don't think that there needed to be some sort of like other action figure. I mean, did we not learn our lesson from the Star Wars buildable figures? No one necessarily wants these. The only reason the kids pick them is because their parents will be like, okay, you can buy a set for like $30 and that one's $30, so the kid will be like, okay, I'll take that one. So if we make some better, smaller sets, maybe kids will start picking them up as well. I mean, there's always the mechs at the end of the day if they want someone to like move around and fight or things like that. We did not need these. Could it be nice to have like a small No Way Home set, or even just a small Spider-Man set with like Doc Ock, Sandman, the Lizard, Electro, literally any of the villains from No Way Home, just that it would like tie in a bit better. Though I also don't know if you would know the villains in the movie by the time that this would have to be designed, so there's also that to consider, but yeah, just literally anything else. I made a video earlier this year saying that Marvel had a mech problem and people were like, no they don't. Yeah they do. Did the Hulkbuster not scream that enough for you? At the end of the day, I really like some of the things that Marvel is trying to do in terms of how they're branching out. Like, I love how they've been doing like the Infinity and Nano gauntlets. I think Thor's hammer is a really good general idea, and I hope they continue doing things like that. But these buildable characters and these giant D&C sets just are not landing. It feels like overall Marvel is really sort of stuck in the same sort of concepts and themes when it comes to set, that being a mech, a buildable action figure, or just even doing some of the same locations and things like that, and then just like swapping out the minifigures in it or the movie that it's set in, rather than doing things that we haven't seen before or trying out new concepts. Like with the Hulkbuster, we had a large Hulkbuster before, and this time you just made it bigger, and in doing so made it a lot worse. Just taking a look at LEGO Marvel in 2021, there is so much potential there, and they have done some amazing things with this theme, and I really just feel like we need to get back on track and find our roots again, and really just sit down and reflect on what people really enjoyed. But if there is one thing I hope that LEGO takes away from Marvel's wave this year, is that bigger does not mean better. Please don't keep making oversized sets. Please don't keep feeding Iron Man down our throats. Let's expand, let's go back to basics, and let's have a lot more variety. The MCU is so expansive, especially right now with the amount of characters they're adding in all the time. It'd be really good to see that reflected in LEGO sets, rather than constantly getting the same people and same things over and over and over. I love the theme so much, and it's really unfortunate to see what has happened to it this year, and just how much less I've been buying into it and how much less interest I've had in it as a whole. So I really hope that things can pick up again next year, and let me know as well how you felt about LEGO Marvel over the last year or so. What sets have you been buying?